Old Hollywood is often remembered as a magical time when movie stars looked perfect, movies were glamorous, and the world of cinema seemed like a dream. When people think about those years, they imagine beautiful actors, elegant dresses, shining theaters, and audiences cheering for their favorite stars. Names like Clark Gable, Judy Garland, Rita Hayworth, and James Dean became symbols of fame and success. Millions of fans around the world believed these actors were living perfect lives filled with luxury, romance, and happiness. But the truth behind the cameras was very different. Behind the bright lights of Hollywood studios, many of these famous stars were struggling with personal problems, secret scandals, and emotional pain. The same actors who made people laugh, cry, and dream on screen were often dealing with difficult lives away from the cameras. Some of them were trapped by powerful studios that controlled every part of their lives. Others faced pressure from fame, addiction, broken relationships, and public criticism. In fact, the lives of many old Hollywood actors were filled with drama that was sometimes even more shocking than the movies they appeared in. During the golden age of Hollywood, the film industry had strict rules about how stars should behave in public. Studios carefully created perfect images for their actors. Publicists worked hard to make sure fans only saw the glamorous side of their favorite celebrities. If an actor had a scandal, the studio often tried to hide it from the public. They arranged fake relationships, secret deals, and carefully planned interviews to protect the reputation of their stars. At the same time, many actors were under intense pressure to work long hours and constantly stay in the spotlight. Some were forced to take dangerous medications just to keep up with their exhausting schedules. Others turned to alcohol or drugs to escape the stress of fame. While audiences believed these actors were living dream lives, many of them were actually fighting personal battles that few people understood. Some stars were known for their wild behavior and rebellious lifestyles. Actors like Errol Flynn and Robert Mitchum became famous not only for their performances, but also for their shocking off-screen actions. Their names often appeared in newspapers because of scandals, arrests, and controversial relationships. Other actors experienced heartbreaking tragedies that deeply affected their lives. Judy Garland, who became famous as the cheerful Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, struggled with addiction and emotional pain for many years. Montgomery Clift, one of the most talented actors of his time, battled personal demons and serious injuries after a terrible car accident. Even the legendary comedian Charlie Chaplin, who made millions of people laugh, faced controversy and criticism because of his complicated personal life. In some cases, the scandals of Hollywood stars were so shocking that they changed the entire film industry. One of the most famous examples was the scandal involving silent film star Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle in the 1920s. The controversy surrounding his trial created public outrage and led to new rules that controlled the behavior of actors and movies. These rules, known as the Hays Code, shaped Hollywood for many years. The scandal proved that even the biggest stars could lose everything overnight. Fame in Hollywood was powerful, but it was also very fragile. Despite all the glamour, old Hollywood was a world filled with secrets, pressure, and sometimes dangerous choices. Many actors lived lives that were exciting but also deeply troubled. Some managed to overcome their struggles and continue successful careers, while others saw their lives end in tragedy. The stories of these stars reveal a side of Hollywood that audiences rarely saw during that time. Behind every famous face was a real person dealing with fear, loneliness, ambition, and the heavy price of fame. When we look back at these legendary actors today, we can see that their lives were far more complicated than the characters they played on screen. Their stories remind us that the golden age of Hollywood was not only about glamour and success, but also about human struggles, scandals, and the difficult reality of living in the spotlight. Clark Gable was one of the biggest movie stars of old Hollywood and was often called the King of Hollywood. With his strong voice, charming smile, and famous mustache, he became the image of the perfect leading man. Millions of fans admired him, and many women around the world dreamed about him. His role as Rhett Butler in the classic film Gone with the Wind made him one of the most unforgettable actors in film history. On the screen, he looked confident, powerful, and romantic. He played characters who seemed fearless and strong, and audiences believed he was just like that in real life. But behind that confident image was a man who carried many personal struggles and secrets that most fans never knew about. Clark Gable's early life was not easy. He was born in Ohio and grew up in a simple working-class family. His father wanted him to be a strong and hard-working man who could do physical labor on the farm. However, Gable was more interested in acting and entertainment. Because of this, his father often thought he was not tough enough and criticized him for not following the traditional path. These early experiences affected Gable deeply and made him feel that he constantly needed to prove himself. Acting eventually became his escape and his way to build confidence. After years of small theater roles and minor film appearances, he finally became a star in Hollywood during the 1930s. Once Gable became famous, his life quickly changed. He signed contracts with major studios like MGM, which had enormous control over their actors. Studios created perfect public images for their stars and tried to hide anything that could damage their reputation. For Gable, this meant that many parts of his personal life were carefully managed and kept secret from the public. While fans believed he was the perfect gentleman, the reality was far more complicated. Gable had a reputation for being a charming but unpredictable man who enjoyed attention from women. Throughout his career, he was involved in several romantic relationships and affairs that studios worked hard to hide from newspapers and the public. One of the most controversial stories connected to Clark Gable involved actress Loretta Young. The two worked together in the 1935 film Call of the Wild. During the filming, Young became pregnant. At that time, a scandal like this could destroy the careers of both actors. Hollywood studios were extremely strict about protecting the public image of their stars, especially female actresses who were expected to appear innocent and respectable. To avoid a scandal, Young disappeared from the public for several months. When she returned, she claimed she had adopted a baby girl who was actually her biological daughter. This secret remained hidden for many years and only became widely known decades later. Stories like this showed how powerful studios were and how far they would go to protect their stars' reputations. Despite his glamorous life, Clark Gable also experienced deep personal pain. One of the most tragic moments of his life happened in 1942 when his wife, actress Carole Lombard, died in a plane crash. Lombard was one of the most popular actresses of the time, and her sudden death shocked the entire country. For Gable, the loss was devastating. Friends and colleagues said he was never the same person after the tragedy. He became quieter and more withdrawn, and some people believed he turned to alcohol to deal with his grief. Although he continued acting and remained a respected star, the joyful and confident image people saw on screen no longer matched how he felt inside. Clark Gable continued working in films for many years and remained one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars. However, his life showed that even the most admired celebrities were not immune to heartbreak and personal struggles. To the public, he was always the powerful and charming king of Hollywood. But behind the scenes, he was a man dealing with loss, pressure, and the complicated reality of living under constant attention. His story reminds us that fame often hides the true challenges people face, even for someone who seemed to have everything. Judy Garland is remembered as one of the most talented and beloved stars in the history of Hollywood. For millions of people, she will always be Dorothy, the sweet and hopeful girl who sang "Over the Rainbow" in the classic film The Wizard of Oz. Her voice, full of emotion and power, could move audiences to tears. On screen, she appeared cheerful, full of life, and full of dreams. Fans saw her as a symbol of hope and innocence. But behind that beautiful voice and bright smile was a life filled with pressure, pain, and struggles that began when she was just a child. Judy Garland was born Frances Ethel Gumm in Minnesota in 1922. Her childhood was very different from that of most children. Her mother, Ethel Gumm, believed her daughters could become stars and pushed them to perform from a very young age. Judy was singing and performing on stage before she was even 10 years old. Instead of playing with friends or enjoying a normal school life, she spent most of her time rehearsing and performing. Her mother was strict and demanding, often pushing Judy to work harder and perform better. Many people who later knew Garland believed that this early pressure had a lasting effect on her emotional health. When Judy Garland was only 16 years old, she signed a contract with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, one of the most powerful film studios in Hollywood. At first, this seemed like a dream opportunity. MGM had some of the biggest stars and produced some of the most famous films in the world. But for Garland, working at the studio was not always a happy experience. The studio treated many young actors more like products than people. They controlled how actors looked, what they wore, how much they weighed, and even how they behaved in public. Garland was constantly told she needed to lose weight to fit Hollywood's beauty standards. Studio executives and managers watched her closely and criticized her appearance, which hurt her confidence. The pressure of long work hours and strict control led to one of the darkest parts of Garland's life. While filming The Wizard of Oz in 1939, she was forced to work extremely long days. To help her stay awake and energetic during filming, studio doctors gave her stimulant pills. At night, they gave her sedatives so she could sleep. This routine became normal for her, even though she was still a teenager. Over time, Garland became dependent on these medications. What started as a way to keep her working eventually became a serious addiction that followed her for the rest of her life. Despite these challenges, Judy Garland's talent was undeniable. She continued making successful films and later became a popular stage performer and singer. Audiences loved her honesty and emotional performances. When she sang, people felt that she was sharing real feelings and experiences. However, her personal life became increasingly unstable. Garland married 5 times, and many of these relationships ended in painful divorces. Friends and family believed she was searching for the love and security she never had during her childhood. Throughout the years, Garland tried many times to overcome her addiction and rebuild her life. She had moments of success and hope, especially during her live performances where audiences welcomed her with admiration and support. But the damage from years of stress, exhaustion, and medication had taken a serious toll on her health. In 1969, Judy Garland was found dead in a London hotel at the age of 47 after an accidental overdose of sleeping pills. Her passing shocked the world and left millions of fans heartbroken. Judy Garland's life became a powerful example of how the Hollywood system sometimes failed the very stars it created. She had extraordinary talent and gave audiences some of the most memorable performances in film and music history. Yet behind the scenes, she struggled with pain that many people did not see. Today, she is remembered not only as a legendary performer, but also as a reminder of the heavy price that fame and pressure can bring. Marlon Brando was one of the most influential actors in the history of cinema. When he first appeared on the screen in the 1950s, he completely changed the way actors performed in movies. His acting style was intense, emotional, and very natural. Instead of the traditional and dramatic acting style used in earlier Hollywood films, Brando brought a new method that made characters feel more real and human. His performances in films like A Streetcar Named Desire and The Godfather made him a legend. Audiences saw him as powerful, mysterious, and extremely talented. But behind that impressive image was a man who struggled with deep emotional pain and personal chaos throughout his life. Brando's troubled life began during his childhood. He grew up in a family that was far from stable. His father was known to be strict and sometimes violent, while his mother struggled with alcoholism. Because of this environment, Brando often felt lonely and misunderstood as a child. These difficult experiences influenced his personality and his acting. Many people believed his ability to show deep emotion on screen came from the pain he had experienced in real life. Even though his talent brought him fame and success, it did not bring him peace. Brando was known for being unpredictable and rebellious. Directors often found it difficult to work with him because he sometimes refused to follow scripts or instructions. However, his performances were so powerful that studios continued to hire him despite the challenges. Brando's personal life was just as complicated as his career. He had many relationships and several marriages, but few of them lasted long. His life was filled with dramatic moments, and tragedy eventually struck his family in a devastating way. One of the darkest events occurred when his son Christian became involved in a shooting that resulted in the death of his sister's boyfriend. The tragedy deeply affected Brando and brought intense media attention to his family. Not long after that, his daughter Cheyenne struggled with emotional problems and later took her own life. These heartbreaking events left Brando feeling devastated and emotionally exhausted. Many people close to him said he never fully recovered from these tragedies. Despite his difficult personal life, Brando also used his fame to support important social causes. One of the most famous moments of his career happened in 1973 when he won the Academy Award for The Godfather. Instead of attending the ceremony, he sent Native American activist Sacheen Littlefeather to refuse the award on his behalf. She used the moment to protest Hollywood's treatment of Native Americans in films. The event shocked audiences and became one of the most talked-about moments in Oscar history. It showed that Brando was not only an actor but also someone willing to challenge the industry he worked in. While Brando struggled with inner battles, another Hollywood star was dealing with a completely different kind of secret. Rock Hudson was one of the most handsome and admired leading men of the 1950s and 1960s. With his tall figure, charming smile, and calm personality, he quickly became one of the most popular romantic actors in Hollywood. Women adored him, and studios promoted him as the perfect gentleman and heartthrob. However, the image the public saw was carefully created by the Hollywood studio system. In reality, Hudson was living a life filled with fear and secrecy, that time in Hollywood, being openly gay could destroy an actor's career. Because of this, Hudson was forced to hide his true identity from the public. Studios arranged fake relationships and even a marriage with his secretary to prevent rumors from spreading. For many years, Hudson lived two different lives, one for the public and one behind closed doors. Only close friends knew the truth, and they worked hard to keep his secret safe. Living under constant pressure to hide who he truly was caused him great emotional stress. In 1985, the world was shocked when Rock Hudson revealed that he had been diagnosed with AIDS. At the time, very little was understood about the disease, and many people were afraid to talk about it. Hudson became one of the first major celebrities to publicly face the illness. His announcement helped bring attention to the AIDS crisis and encouraged more open discussion about the disease. Although his life ended later that year, his honesty helped change public awareness and compassion toward people suffering from AIDS. Both Brando and Hudson showed that behind Hollywood's glamorous image were real people facing difficult battles that the public rarely saw. During the golden years of Hollywood, few actresses were admired as much as Ingrid Bergman. She was known for her natural beauty, powerful acting, and graceful personality. Audiences around the world fell in love with her performances in famous films such as Casablanca and The Bells of St. Mary's. Bergman seemed to represent everything pure and respectable about Hollywood. She often played characters who were kind, noble, and morally strong. Because of this, fans believed she was exactly the same person in real life. However, a single scandal in the early 1950s completely changed the way the public saw her and almost destroyed her career in America. In 1949, Ingrid Bergman traveled to Italy to work with Italian director Roberto Rossellini on the film Stromboli. At the time, both Bergman and Rossellini were married to other people. During the filming, the two developed a romantic relationship and eventually fell in love. Soon afterward, Bergman became pregnant with Rossellini's child. When the news reached the United States, the reaction was immediate and extremely harsh. Many fans felt betrayed by the actress they had admired for so many years. Newspapers printed angry headlines, and people began criticizing her personal life. In a dramatic moment that showed how serious the scandal had become, a United States senator even publicly condemned her during a speech in Congress, calling her behavior immoral. The criticism did not stop there. Religious groups and church organizations across America began boycotting her films. Hollywood studios, afraid of losing money and damaging their reputation, stopped offering her major roles. Almost overnight, the actress, who had been one of the most respected stars in Hollywood, found herself rejected by the industry that had once celebrated her. Instead of returning to America and apologizing publicly, Bergman chose to follow her heart. She moved to Italy with Rossellini and began making films in Europe. Although some of these films were respected by critics, they did not have the same success as her earlier Hollywood movies. For several years, Bergman lived in what many people called an exile from American cinema. Yet she remained determined to continue her career and prove her talent. Finally, in 1956, she returned to Hollywood with the film Anastasia. Her performance was so powerful that she won the Academy Award for Best Actress. When she walked onto the stage to accept the award, the audience gave her a long-standing ovation. Many people felt that the applause was not only for her acting but also an apology for the way she had been treated years earlier. Bergman's story showed how quickly public opinion could change and how harshly Hollywood judged the personal lives of its stars. While Bergman's scandal involved love and public judgment, another famous actor was quietly fighting his own personal struggles behind the scenes. Spencer Tracy was known as one of the most respected and talented actors of his time. With his calm presence and strong performances, he became famous for playing thoughtful and reliable characters. On the screen, he appeared steady, wise, and trustworthy. But in his private life, Tracy carried emotional burdens that few people understood. One of the biggest struggles in Spencer Tracy's life was his relationship with actress Katharine Hepburn. The two actors met while working together in the 1940s and quickly developed a deep emotional connection. Their chemistry on screen was powerful, and they became one of Hollywood's most famous acting partners. However, their relationship was complicated because Tracy was already married. As a devout Catholic, he refused to divorce his wife, even though he spent many years in a romantic relationship with Hepburn. Because of this situation, their love had to remain mostly hidden from the public. At the same time, Tracy struggled with alcoholism, which often caused problems during film productions. He sometimes disappeared for days during drinking episodes before returning to work. Friends and coworkers worried about his health and emotional state. Another source of pain for Tracy was his deep guilt over his son John being born deaf. During that time, many people misunderstood deafness, and Tracy wrongly blamed himself for his son's condition. This guilt weighed heavily on him and contributed to his drinking problems. Although he continued acting successfully for many years, Tracy lived with emotional conflicts that never fully disappeared. His life reminds us that even the most respected Hollywood stars often carried private struggles hidden behind their professional success. Another interesting moment that people remember from the show happened when Carson talked about the idea of timeless beauty. He explained that beauty was not just about a perfect face or fashionable clothes. According to him, real beauty was something deeper. It was the way a person carried themselves, the way they smiled, and how they treated others. Many actresses who appeared on his show proved this idea. They had talent, charm, and intelligence along with their looks. The audience could feel this when they watched them speak and laugh during interviews. Carson had a unique ability to make guests feel relaxed. Because of this, their real personality often appeared on screen. This made viewers connect with them even more. When Carson later shared his list of the most beautiful women who appeared on his show, people understood that he was not only talking about physical beauty. He was talking about the full presence of a person. Many fans agreed with him because these women had left strong memories in television history. Their beauty felt natural and genuine rather than forced. In an era when Hollywood sometimes focused too much on appearance, Carson reminded everyone that personality mattered just as much. His show gave viewers the chance to see celebrities as real people instead of distant stars. That is one reason the program remained so loved for many years. Even today, clips from those interviews continue to spread online, showing younger generations how entertaining and warm the conversations were. Carson's calm humor and respectful attitude made every guest shine in their own way. When he spoke about the women he believed were the most beautiful, it felt more like a compliment to their spirit than just their looks. This idea of beauty is something that still connects with audiences today because people understand that charm, kindness, and confidence can make someone truly unforgettable.